Hello, and welcome back to another year of Not a Roadrunner. So today's episode is about gauges. So I've been sitting on these for a while, actually. But to be honest, I've had these 3 videos filmed. Well, I've had one of them filmed, but I haven't had a chance to edit it because of my dissertation, which was due on the 7th of January, which is why I was pretty much absent the whole way up until Christmas. So I'm really sorry about that, guys, but we will be getting back on it, and it will be bi-weekly uploads, so definitely stay tuned for that. And let's get to it. Today's is oil pressure, so we're having an oil pressure electric Smith's gauge install. So to feed all these gauges, we have a wire coming from the battery through a fuse to a relay, which it goes to the 30 prong. Then you have a wire connecting the 30 prong and the 85 prong. The live to the switch comes from the 85 prong, and the colour grounding wires go to the 86 prong. Then the 87 prong feeds whatever you're feeding, which in this case is a mini fuse board that I've rigged up so that we can feed all 3 gauges and they can all have individual fuses. And for the control, we're using a button which is totally customizable from Billet Automotive buttons. It is an RGB button, so as you can see here, we can have yellow, which I think will look great with the interior of the car once it's all done and tidied. So when I run the wires to the relay and the fuse board, I took the liberty of attaching the live for the bulb and a wire for the gauge to the fuse board, so that is ready to just hook up and connect to our gauge. But there are 2 main components to this. We have the gauge and we have the oil pressure sender, which is what gives us the reading that the gauge actually displays. The sender is actually super easy to install, so you just have a thread at the bottom and you wire one wire, which is a signal wire, to the top, which then connects to the prong on the back of the gauge. So on a 1972 Plymouth Satellite, there was never actually an oil pressure gauge fitting, but what it did have was an oil pressure light, so if it dropped too low, it would signal it, and that right there is where it's located, and that's the wire that is doing absolutely nothing on my car, so there is no reason not to rip it out and replace it with the gauge. As you can see, the place is really fiddly because it's so close to the firewall, and because of where the actual thread is situated, you can't get a socket on it, so I opted for a set of water pump pliers to remove it. So with the old one removed, it's time to install the new one. As you can see, it's just a nice easy wind it in. I did struggle quite a bit with finding the correct angle, but you just need to keep at it and you'll eventually find it when you try different angles. Because of the shape of the pressure sensor, it was actually quite hard to grip, but there is a slot underneath for a spanner, so I got on it with a wrench and just made sure it was nice and snug. And to conclude the engine bay antics, we have got to run a cable from the pressure sensor into the cabin. When running a cable to something that is going to mount on an engine, it's always a good idea to leave a little bit of slack, because obviously the engine is going to move because the engine mounts aren't completely solid. With the engine bay all finished up, now I just need to route the signal wire to the back of the gauge.
So everything that we saw at the beginning of the video is mounted to this little plate. This plate is then mounted to the dash, through the dash, which is what the gauge cluster actually hangs off of. So the dash on these cars is earthed because that's what the instrument cluster lights work off of. So I'm going to earth all of these gauges to that plate, and then we're going to go from there. Well, that's not ideal.
Okay, so we're not leaking oil, that's good. Okay, so the question is, I don't know whether I need to actually earth the back of this as well, but one way to find out. Light on. Hey, look at that, it's building up. Yeah. How cool is that? I love it. It's actually sick.
So the final step is just earthing the actual gauge. So what I've decided to do is I've made a wire with 2 ring connectors. I'm going to connect the C-clip that holds the back of the gauge to that plate that I showed you earlier.
And that concludes today's episode, guys. So I need to run it basically and see how accurate it is, or if I need to change my oil, or maybe if the bearings aren't right, because obviously it depends if it's too high or too low. The clearances might not be right for my oil, so I need to check that. And yeah, I mean, the install was pretty easy. Yeah, it's taken me forever, and I do want to apologize because it has been a while since I've uploaded. So I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, leave a comment and check out some of my other videos. Please like, subscribe and share, and I will see you in the next episode. Cheers, guys.